At the Mountain Accord process for about a year. The executive board formed about a year and a half ago, and we put together a process for how we were going to balance economic, recreation, environmental, and transportation needs. And so we went out to the public last January or February, and we've been taking public feedback all along the way. We've had over 200 people involved in each of these 4 committees for the environment, recreation, transportation, and economy. And what we did is we asked them to tell us what their ideal future would be. And so you can take a look at those on the website. And what we did after we looked at those idealized systems is we said, where are the areas of commonality and where are the areas of conflict? So where we're at right now is we've just come forward with a blueprint that the executive board is proposing for public feedback that balances all of these different needs. In April, the executive board will actually formalize that blueprint and move into implementation and potentially an environmental impact statement. So what brought us together? This graphic, you can see it more detailed in the blueprint document, but the orange line along the west side of the mountains goes from Ogden up north and Salt Lake Valley in the center of the valley and Provo down south. And that represents our traditional pattern of urbanization. But what we see happening in the future is that we see more and more growth happening on the east side of the mountains as well, in Park City and Heber and Midway. And that's the red arrows on the right. So what we're going to be seeing in the future is a lot more pressure put on this one small area that we all love. And this small area is our source of water for over 500,000 people in Salt Lake Valley and in Park City. And it's our recreation hub. Many of us live here for the access to the activities in the mountains. And it also drives our economy, not just because of the ski resorts. Many businesses locate here because of that resource. So on a peak day right now in the winter, just in the area between Harley's and Little Cottonwood Canyon, there's 50,000 people in that one small little area. On an annual basis, that area gets 5.7 million visitors, and that's more than Yosemite National Park. So we're seeing a lot of use up there. We know it's going to grow in the future. We have 1.1 million people living in the valley surrounding the mountains, and that's going to grow to 1.6 in 2040. And so we want to plan ahead for this resource and understand what we need to be doing to ensure that 100 years from now we've preserved everything that's important. Oh look, there's all those statistics I just went over in a nifty slide. I should have pulled that up. Okay, so what are some other things that we see that are coming in the future? We know that there's a lot of conflicts that have traditionally been going on in this small area, and we see a lot of congestion. So what we're offering with the blueprint is what we've done is we said, this is what's coming in our future. We have a lot of conflict in our future. We have a lot of uncertainty. We have development pressures, and we have a lot of population growth to deal with. And what we want to talk about tonight is an alternative future. So that's been outlined as a proposal for your feedback in a blueprint. And what we're trying to accomplish with the blueprint is preserving our natural resources, shaping the way we grow and develop, ensuring that we have a good quality of life and great recreation experiences in the future, and sustaining our economy. I'm going to just briefly go over the main components of the blueprint, and then as the evening unfolds, we can talk about more details with the panel members. So first of all, foundational to the entire effort is that we preserve the watershed and we preserve our recreational experiences. We preserve the environment. So first, the light area that you're seeing on the map here is existing wilderness. It's a very high level of protection. And the darker green area is the area that we're proposing we preserve into the future. And what we mean by that is we don't want to see development other than at the base of the ski resorts in these areas. We've proposed a couple of ways we would get that done. We have some land ownership, private land that would come into public access. And we are also proposing a federal lands protection like a national scenic area, national recreation area, wilderness, etc. We can talk about more of those details. The second component is a recreational trail network. So looking to connect regionally the population centers and the mountain destinations with a regional trail network. Okay, so our economic and recreation centers, we know that we have a lot of growth coming, and the plan is to focus the growth in the economic centers in the existing urbanized area and at the base of the ski resorts where there's already development and there's already infrastructure to accommodate additional visitation. These areas that you're seeing here are consistent with the Wasatch Choice for 2040 plan. So the last component is to connect these economic centers and mountain destinations with high quality, marketable, fast, convenient transit. When you look at it all together, this is what our blueprint looks like. We are conducting this forum tonight so that we can engage in productive civic dialogue about balancing these competing needs and understanding if we've done that with this blueprint. So with that, we're going to turn it over to the panel members, and I'm going to ask Mayor Becker to begin and to talk about what's brought to the table here and what you see in the blueprint.
Okay, thank you. Thank all of you for showing up tonight, and I can tell you that on behalf of all of us who have been working in this effort for, in some cases, years, but really a year of sort of intense effort around the Mountain Accord effort. Can you hear me out there? Thank you. That we are anxious to get as much public input and feedback and direction as we can receive in this coming month. So I hope all of you, you're obviously here because you're interested, but I hope you'll take advantage of an opportunity to comment, give us your feedback, and I can assure you that I and others are going to be looking closely at what we hear and read and see from those who are able to comment and participate with us. So Salt Lake City, Elena mentioned that these mountains are the water supply and critical watershed for really very many of the residents and businesses and visitors in the Salt Lake Valley as well as in Park City. Salt Lake City owns almost all of the water coming out of the Salt Lake side of the mountains. And for well over a century, Salt Lake City has had the lead responsibility for protecting the watersheds. And that hasn't happened by accident, that we have superb water coming into this valley. And our not only goal, but our responsibility and determined objective is to make sure we hold on to that very high quality water. Both because we all like good water to drink, but also if the water quality deteriorates, which it has at times in different Wasatch Canyons in the past, it affects our ability to be able to treat the water. It becomes much more expensive to treat the water, if not have really significant effects on the users of the canyons to be able to protect our water supply. And we all know that water is the lifeblood in our state, the second most arid state in the country, and certainly for us in the Salt Lake area. Beyond that, I would just say that for Salt Lake City, given our watershed responsibilities and water supply responsibilities, we've had very strict requirements about water that gets used in the canyons to protect, really with the objective of protecting the watershed. And we recognize that we represent a very large portion of the population in Salt Lake Valley, who use these canyons for recreational purposes and enjoy these canyons. And Lady indicated that she came here for the mountains. So many of us came here and either were initially attracted or has been a central feature of what has kept us here. And so it's critically important from Salt Lake City's vantage point to protect our water supply, that we provide for users in the canyons in a way that protects that resource, but that also is respectful of the various users in the canyons. And those users, as the intensity of use has expanded, as the numbers of users have grown, are consistently for the same terrain. And we now have kind of a balance of users and uses and protection of the resources. And our objective is to, if we can, through this mountain accord process, to find a way that addresses that protection, that careful balance among users, and provides for solutions that we know we need to find going forward. We all know that transportation in the canyons and increasingly Wasatch Back has become an enormous challenge, and it's both a challenge in terms of congestion, people getting up and down the canyons for the uses we enjoy, but also a public safety issue. The more we have, folks trapped in these canyons, it's an accident waiting to happen that we don't want to see related to avalanches. So we see a whole combination of both challenges in front of us, but also an opportunity to make generational decisions that will not only solve problems, but protect the qualities that we hold so dear in the Wasatch. So that's what brings us to the table, that's what keeps us at the table. And I'll just say on behalf of Salt Lake City, we have been grateful that literally everyone has come to the table and stayed at the table through not only a lot of varying views, but sometimes pretty intense disagreements about what should or shouldn't happen in these mountains. And if we can forge some kind of consensus around long-term decisions and implement it, which is at the heart, of course, of anything we would agree to, we are both confident and believe we will be so much better served for the coming generation and future generations if we can make decisions and implement those decisions that will meet all of these varying needs for the future.
Yeah, I'm Dave Whittakin. I'm the Forest Supervisor of the Uinta-Wasatch-Cache National Forest, and we manage the land in a good portion of the Wasatch Front, the Cottonwood Canyons and Mill Creek and those areas, and I assumed that because we manage those lands, I had no choice but to participate in this. So here I am. And on a more serious note, I don't think we did have a choice but to participate in this. Where we see the coming pressures and see the pressures right now, increased demand for recreation use. We manage those watersheds. We're just as concerned as the city of Salt Lake in keeping water quality high. We're very concerned with the experience that people have in those areas, and we're very aware of all the pressures on the environment that take place as people move in, with the projections of an increasing population coming into the Cottonwood Canyons. I was excited for the opportunity to take something like this on. It's not very often that in my job we get an opportunity to work with a broad cross-section of people who are coming together for a relatively common goal. And certainly if we can reach that common goal, if we can reach a fairly broad consensus on how we want to move forward, my agency is very key in the next step of that, which is going through the NEPA process. And oftentimes that's not an easy process. And if everybody more or less agrees on how we want to move forward, it makes my job considerably easier in doing that NEPA analysis and trying to figure out how we implement all of the projects that we come up with, and ultimately how we manage these canyons into the future, which are of interest to everybody. So for me, it was a very exciting project to be able to work on, and something I think will be historic and precedent setting, not only for Salt Lake, for Utah, but for the entire country, to be able to really plan and implement and plan for our future in a place like this. That's why I'm here, and that's why many of my employees are participating as well.
From Save Our Canyons perspective, this really presented a unique opportunity to achieve what I think our organization has been trying to achieve for over 40 years now. I mean, the purpose of Save Our Canyons has been to secure protections for this unique community asset, to protect our water, to protect access to unprecedented recreational opportunities, and to preserve the so many wonderful things about the natural beauty of the Central Wasatch Mountains. And really, what better forum to do it in, where you have the decision makers for every single municipality, governmental entity sitting around the table saying, we want to hear from you, and we want to help, advocate for the protection of this resource. So I think it was really and is a unique opportunity to realize some conservation goals that have been stalled in Congress, for example. There's a path forward through the Mountain Accord that have been politicized at municipal levels to realize ordinance changes and things of that nature, to achieve transit solutions that the community has overwhelmingly said that they want to see happen in the canyons. The Mountain Accord really is it, and I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And furthermore, I would say it's very rare for not only an environmental organization like Save Our Canyons, but for the community at large to be engaged on the front end of projects before they even get into the NEPA process. Generally, our communities are forced to respond to the projects after they've been developed. We now have an opportunity to shape what projects go forward, and I just don't see how anybody could turn their nose up at a unique opportunity like that. We have great leadership and their ears are open. And it's time to make sure that everybody's voices are elevated and that we put the best plan forward for a place that is like none other on this planet.
My name's Andy Bierman, and I'm on the Park City Council and representing the Wasatch Back tonight. I, like many people, came here for the mountains. About 25 years ago, I was traveling around the West to many beautiful places. I had a fun job. I was working as a mountain guide and got to spend time in Alaska and Wyoming, North Cascades, places like that. But I found myself coming back over and over and over again to Salt Lake until I finally decided to put some roots in. And it was really because I fell in love with these canyons. I loved the setting up there, how they interfaced with the city, how accessible they were. And a few years later, I moved to Park City, which has become my home. I've started a business there and put some roots down, and I've become involved in local government. And I largely got involved to work on preservation projects. I was concerned about open space and growth up there. So it was a treat when about a year and a half ago, I was invited to come be involved in the Mountain Accord. It felt full circle for me to be able to come around and work on a preservation project that affected both the Wasatch Front and the Wasatch Back. Park City and all of Summit County is excited to be involved in this project. Much like the Wasatch Front, we are a bit of a victim of our own success, and we're loving our landscape to death. We have a lot of people to move. Our quiet mountain town has become filled with cars, and we're trying to come up with solutions how to address that and how to ensure some long-term preservation. We see the Mountain Accord as an excellent tool to do that, and we view these issues as a regional issue, and it's not something we can address on our own. We need to work closely with our partners. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's going to be, we're curious to hear your feedback on our blueprint. We had over 200 people work on this for the past year. They were all very passionate about what they were doing and what they were representing. And by passionate, they were passionate about their own elements of that. There was a lot of agreement or disagreement. It was constructive, but I think we've come to some great compromises that could create a sustainable model. So thanks for coming out.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name is Nathan Rafferty. I'm the president of Ski Utah. We are the marketing association that represents all 15 of Utah's alpine resorts, not just the 7 in the central Wasatch, but they represent probably 80% of the business in our state. I was not quite born here, moved here when I was less than a year old, but was lucky enough to grow up skiing these resorts. Probably the model participant here is I took a bus, UTA bus up from right near Foothill Boulevard every day up to Solitude. Not every day, had to go to school every now and then. But I was lucky enough to work my way into the ski industry, and so, you know, get to live and work in a great place. And so really excited to be here. I represent the commercial aspect of these mountains. As all of you know, and you wouldn't be here if you didn't think that Utah was a great place to be summer and winter. It's feeling a little bit more like summer today than it should be in February. But tourism is big business in Utah. So tourism represents $7.4 billion in our state. Skiing is a big chunk of that. And I guess what drew us here mostly, obviously a big presence in these canyons, and by the 7 ski areas, soon to be 6 ski areas in the Mountain Accord study group or study area, really was mostly the focus on the transportation probably. The resorts do an incredible job of creating a great experience for locals and destination guests alike. But what we saw and what we continue to see is a deterioration of the experience getting to and from the resort. So, you know, nothing will crush your powder day worse than seeing that line of cars at 7-Eleven and, you know, an hour and a half of frustration before you can get on the chair. Even if you do get up there early and you have a great day, then you got to turn around and come in or out of those places. And you, by the time you get home or back to your hotel room, your frustration level is at a point where maybe your experience in Utah isn't as good as it should be, and maybe you're going to be thinking about going somewhere else next year. And we're in the bring more people to Utah business and give them a great experience. You know, that's what brought us here. We're excited to listen, and we've been doing a lot of that over the past almost year that Mountain Accord has been going on. And we'll continue to do so. So excited to be a part of this. You know, it is amazing. You know, all the 6 of us on stage have sat through, I don't know how many hours of meetings to this point, and I'm afraid to think of how many more hours of meetings there will be. But we're to a point now which is kind of uncharted territory, I think. We're getting closer and closer to some significant agreements that I think won't probably leave anybody at the table high-fiving anybody, but will be a compromise, I think, and I hope. And you know, our goal as the ski industry is to be able to provide a great place for winter recreation next year, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. So our eye is to the future on this project.
Okay, we're gonna start off with just some general questions about the Mountain Accord blueprint and how it's got off the thing. So, audience members have any general questions like that, please get them in. I'm gonna start off with one. We have a couple of
They've all been easy. Actually, I don't know that we have made decisions yet. I mean, I think the point of the point where we are in this process, and the reason for bringing this proposed blueprint to the public is we have done, I think, the best job we can of understanding the issues, understanding these mountains, understanding them from a variety of perspectives. That's recreation, environment, transportation, and the economy, and tried to meld a proposal for public review. And so decisions are yet to come. There's a proposal out there that I think reflects a pretty delicate balance. I mean, I think everyone is on edge who's been participating in this. I think it's fair to say, looking down the table and everyone we've had involved in this. And I think we want a sense is like, are we going in the right direction? And should we make the decisions that are really hard long-term decisions that would commit ourselves to a future? So I'd say we're in still a pre-decisional phase. So if there's been a hard part, it's been, I think it's been for all of us sort of taking a step that is a risk for any of us in terms of our responsibilities or who we represent, and saying, okay, if all of these pieces fit together, something along these lines could work.
I think for me, the most difficult decision was committing the time of my folks to this process. There was kind of a leap of faith in hoping and assuming that we would get to some sort of an agreement. Quite often, my agency's measured on what we accomplish, and spending an inordinate amount of time in meetings and having conversations and discussing potential actions and potential stuff is a pretty big commitment. But I felt it was worthwhile to get involved, to get engaged, to work through this. And as I said, a lot of the land is managed by the Forest Service. It really wouldn't work if we weren't at the table. And our hope is that we do get somewhere, but making that leap and really hoping that we reach some sort of an agreement, that was probably the biggest thing for me.
I think the mayor put it well in that we haven't made any decisions yet, but one thing we did have to decide on at the beginning was how we were going to structure this. And there are a lot of parties involved. There are 24, I think actually 25 partners in our agreement. I believe that's 6 cities, 3 counties, a number of representatives from the environmental community, representatives from the business community. And we had to decide how we were going to handle this from a public standpoint and balance out efficiency versus maximum input. And I would say we erred on the side of maximum input. Our systems groups, which we pulled together, were about 200 people representing a huge variety of folks. And there's been some criticism that it has not been an efficient process, and I will agree with that. But I think it's been good democracy. We've brought a lot of people in the room and had hard discussions to get to where we are.